Nixon had had the election stolen from him in 1960, had not challenged it because of his desire not to divide the country, and was going to win it big this time or die in the attempt.
He was paranoid. He thought he was in a business where there was no honesty, and if he wished to continue in it, he had to do things that he conceived other people did. And, you know, a lot of the line came out of that.
Just days after his nomination, Nixon visited the LBJ ranch in Texas. According to a Johnson aide, Nixon said, quote, he was not going to undercut the peace process. But Nixon had already made moves that would enable him to influence South Vietnam's President Thieu. It began months earlier at Nixon's Fifth Avenue apartment with a secret meeting between him and a woman called Anna Chennault. One of the most colorful and glamorous figures to have emerged from Asia, Anna is the widow of General Chennault, the legendary commander of the Flying Tigers, who defended China in World War II.
Roaring aloft, they seek the enemy, their flying general still at the controls.
Soon after the war, General Chennault married the astonishingly beautiful Anna. When her war hero husband died, Anna moved to Washington, where she became a prominent activist and fundraiser for the Republican Party. By 1967, she was known as an expert on Southeast Asian affairs, with top-level contacts in Saigon.
Only by showing our strength that we'll be able to bring the communists to the conference room. And then we can talk business. In the past, shall we say that maybe we've been sending them the wrong message?
This was the woman whom Nixon had invited to meet him at his New York apartment.
Private meeting, very private. Of course, was very happy to see me again, and he needed my help. He needs someone to give him information and also to carry messages for him.
Nixon wanted Anna Chennault to use her influence to keep him in contact with President Thieu. When we do things, Nixon told her as the meeting ended, it'll be better to keep it secret.
He also said if he were elected president, he definitely would end the Vietnam War. And that was what I believe, and that was why I promised that I would do my best to help him.
Now, in the summer of 1968, Anna Chennault was asked to arrange a meeting with the South Vietnamese ambassador. Ambassador Bui Diem's diary shows that they met on July the 12th, 1968.
As ambassador of Vietnam, I had the duty to understand the real positions of the candidates to the presidential election. And that is the main reason why I finally accept the offer of Anna Chennault to have a meeting with Mr. Nixon.
The ambassador arrived to find Chennault with John Mitchell, Nixon's campaign manager. Nixon was there too.
Nixon told Ambassador Bui Diem that any message to President Thieu will go through Anna Chennault, or any message President Thieu of Vietnam wanted to give to me, you may give it to Anna.
9 days before the election, President Johnson received news from Paris. North Vietnam would come to peace talks if America agreed to a bombing halt. LBJ called a meeting of his closest advisors.
The mood was tense. We started our session rather late,
and he had his military advisors and his key cabinet officers there, State and Defense. I was there. He went around the room to get their opinions on what he should do.
The field commander, General Abrams, was flown in from Vietnam and sneaked into the White House in disguise. LBJ quizzed him about the military implications of a bombing halt.
And he closed by saying, "Mr. President, you will be plunged into a cesspool of controversy. This will be interpreted as a political act. But if I were you, I would do it."
But that night, the Johnson cabinet also discussed Anna Chennault's secret communications with South Vietnam's President Thieu.
It was discovered that from various electronic surveillance, I think, that her activities were pretty intense.
The South Vietnamese embassy had been bugged. One intercept, dated the 27th of October, noted that Ambassador Diem is regularly in touch with the Nixon entourage.
I was following the traffic and I was following the evidence and all of that. And cipher breakers had broken a message saying that a big effort was being made to interfere with what might have been a serious initiation of peace negotiations. Well, this made Johnson very angry indeed.
I think there was an element of authentic shock that he would go so far as to try to suborn another government to do something that would help in the election. But it was tempered by the fact that he had a very low view of Nixon.
Later, Johnson put through a conference call to the presidential candidates.
He says, someone's telling the South Vietnamese to hold out until after the election.
Johnson was sending warning signals to Nixon. Nixon was playing it very cleverly. Nixon's going out of his way to say to LBJ, "I'm supporting you better than your own Vice President, Hubert Humphrey."
Well, I think President Johnson accepted the denials, knowing otherwise.
Good evening, my fellow Americans.
President Johnson went on national television.
I speak to you this evening about very important developments. I have now ordered that all air, naval, and artillery bombardment of North Vietnam cease.
When LBJ suddenly announced a halt in the bombing of Vietnam, the week before, I think it was Thursday before the election, we assumed that this was an effort to help Humphrey. And this had an explosive public reaction.
Humphrey closed a 30-point gap, crossed Nixon in the polls, led him briefly, and it veered back and forth based on whether this negotiation was going to begin or not. The drama could not have been greater.
In public, Nixon kept up the appearance of supporting the drive for peace.
That as a presidential candidate and my vice presidential running mate joins me in this, neither he nor I will say anything that might destroy the chance to have peace. We want peace above politics.
The election was now only 5 days away.